Who am I? Well, I'm Dr. Jim Morris. I work at the Regional Hospital in the Cancer Center, aka the Quit Coach. What do? I work with smokers, trying to help smokers become non-smokers. Where do I do it? In the Cancer Center above Robbins Donuts. When do I do it? 24/7. It's only partly a joke, but I do work with smokers off hours, Saturdays, and so on. How do I do it? I follow clinical practice guidelines or best practice guidelines. Why do I do it? Because hardly a day goes by in my practice that I don't work with someone who is no longer smoking. And I shake their hand and I say, "You've made my day. You're no longer smoking." Okay, a conundrum is something that's hard to understand or explain. Another way of looking at it, it is an intricate or difficult problem. And I've been working with people in the smoking area for many, many years. And smoking is really a triangle: prevention, cessation, and protection. Prevention is trying to get young people not to start. Protection is the smoke-free situation. And some of you may recall that the city of Thunder Bay went smoke-free July the 1st, 2005, at which time Resolute, Bowater, Abitibi, etc. went smoke-free July the 1st, 2005. And that's the protection, secondhand smoke. The other issue, of course, is cessation. If people are smoking, we should have programs to help them. So I've been involved in all three parts over my career. And I guess the question is to smoke or not to smoke. That's the question. And a better question is to quit or not to quit. But this is the conundrum. I like to point it out this way before I get into maybe the solution. Yesterday, 100 people in Canada died of smoking-caused diseases. Today, 100 people will die of smoking-caused diseases. Tomorrow, 100 people will die of smoking-caused diseases. 36 to 37,000 people annually in Canada die of smoking-caused diseases, and no one gives a shit. And when I say that, people are more upset with the fact that I use the word shit than 100 people are going to die today from smoking-caused diseases. 100 people will die tomorrow. It sort of gets lost in the shuffle. I work at a hospital where there's 400 beds. About 100 of our beds are occupied because smoking put people in those beds. That's a bed census. Heart disease, stroke, emphysema or COPD, cancers, and not just lung cancer. About 30 to 40% of cancers. Most people think lung cancer, but what about tongue cancer, mouth cancer, esophageal cancer, bladder cancer? And we're now starting to get the research that breast cancer caused by smoking. So this is the facts, and when you look at it, almost 3 times as many people die from smoking-caused diseases than die from murder, suicide, drug abuse, car accidents, and AIDS combined. Combine all those causes of death, 2 to 3 times more people die from smoking-caused diseases. But the conundrum is, why don't people just quit? No one avoids death, and I always touch wood when I say that at my age. But what you avoid if you don't smoke is premature death. And that's the point. What you avoid if you don't smoke is premature death. And then some statistician has estimated using these sort of figures that each cigarette takes 11 minutes off a smoker's life. This is the famous red line, orange line, green line. The red line represents the smoking line. And if you look at the chart, when you're just above 25% of your lung function, you can't live without oxygen. Do you know what emphysema is? Probably 95% of those people are smokers or former smokers. The red line represents the smoking line. The person's on oxygen in the last few years of life. The orange line represents the person who quits at roughly age 45. They're way out in their 80s. They're still not on that critical line where they have to be on oxygen. The green line represents non-smokers. And at age 85, that person or people are 50% of when they were a 25-year-old. And the best way to describe what emphysema is, if you know what beef jerky is. I say to people, what's beef? Do you know what beef jerky is? Oh yeah. How do they make beef jerky? They dry it, they dehydrate it, they take the moisture off the beef strips, and that preserves it. So when you're smoking, think of what you're doing. You're taking hot smoke into the lungs, so you're smoking whole sections of your lungs, making it like beef jerky. And after a while, And see, every smoker has emphysema or COPD. Mild, moderate, advanced. The trouble is it creeps up on people, and as people have been smoking for 25, 30 years, etc., their lungs get more like beef jerky, they can't get enough oxygen. And by the way, this little toy, $350, this tests FEV1, forced expiratory volume, in 1 second. And it shows the volume that they've expired. It shows a predicted what it should be for a person of that age, gender, race, and height. And then it gives their lung age. And what it really shows is as people progress in their smoking career, their lung age goes higher. So a person in their 40s, smoking 25 years, may have a lung age of a 70-year-old. So this little machine is invaluable. Okay? Anyway, with all this information and medical facts, why don't they just quit? People know all these bad things that I've just talked about, but why don't they just quit? Who are they? Here are some famous deaths. Look at these people, and most of us, especially middle-aged people, young people might not know some of these names, but when you look at these names, look at the ages. And here's an interesting one. Our Queen is celebrating 60 years on the British, on the throne. Her father died, King George VI died of lung cancer at 57. Hey, 2-pack-a-day smoker. And Wayne McLaren died of lung cancer at 51. He was the original Marlboro man, riding the range, smoking cigarettes. He did a wonderful documentary for the American Cancer Society saying, please kids, I'm dying of lung cancer. In a few months I'm going to be gone. 51. Babe Ruth, the Bambino, probably the most famous baseball player, smoked cigars every day of his life. Died of throat cancer at 52. And when you look at the ages of these people, think of the lost number of years. And when you look at the average age, probably in the mid-50s, as Sir Richard said, no one avoids death, but what you avoid if you don't smoke is premature death. Here's the conundrum. It's called a three-link chain. There's 3 parts to it. There's the addiction part, there's the behavior part, there's the socio-cultural. And like any chain, all 3 parts are attached. When I work with clients, I usually refer to as ABC. It's a little better than having a linked chain. But remember the chicken and the egg story? Which comes first, the chicken or the egg? Oh, the chicken. Well, where's the chicken come from? The egg. Where's the egg come from? The chicken. Hey, you go in circles. So that's why when you look at this diagram, is it the addiction, is it the behavior, or the triggers, or the cues, or the habits, or is it the socio-cultural, which is what other people do? Okay? Let's talk about the addiction. This is the physiology. All smokers from the time they were teenagers have a tiny, tiny set of microneurons, nanoneurons. They're called the alpha-4 beta-2 neurons. These are the neurons that when nicotine arrives there, they send a message to the other part of the brain, and dopamine is released. And dopamine is the pleasure chemical. So people get pleasure. And what's the opposite of pleasure? Pain. So if you're not getting the pleasure from the cigarette, the smoking version of nicotine, then it's painful. Hence the addiction, the withdrawal symptoms. I was up in Campbell Red Lake Mine a few years ago, and one young fellow said, but hey doc, what about the pleasure? And I said,